What's your reaction to today's outcome, Lee?
Shock, horror, confusion, outrage. I don't think people can understand how a jury had determined that Mark Duggan didn't have a gun and yet was lawfully killed. It seems to suggest that as long as officers have reasonable suspicion that you are armed, then they can lawfully shoot you on the streets of the United Kingdom. That can't be right as a judgment. And it seems counterintuitive almost in terms of this judgment. It is perverse, and the anger that you've seen outside the court by the family and supporters of Mike Duggan will be replicated in very many communities across the country.
So you can understand their reaction then to today's verdict?
I'm as equally outraged and angry as they are, to be frank. The reality is that Mark Duggan's death in custody has to be seen in context, and that context is an increasing number of black men who find themselves dying in suspicious circumstances in police custody. It's the context of increased stop and search, where racial profiling leads police officers to target young black men in particular, and it results in a disproportionate level of force because the culture of racism within the institution of the police leads officers to believe that all black people are superhuman criminals that can only be tackled by overwhelming and disproportionate force. It's a matter that the nation really needs to take notice of before we see a return of those disturbances we saw in 2011.
So these claims by Mark Duggan's family, these lines that we heard shouted out in court this afternoon, that the jury has been influenced by the colour of this man's skin, you think that's true? I
think it is true, and I think it points to the need for multiracial juries. The equivalent is women rape victims who, despite overwhelming evidence, forensic and otherwise, in rape trials, are routinely disbelieved by juries. And it's something about the perception of women, particularly where they've had some alcohol or particularly where they've assumed to be consenting to rape, have found themselves subject to these perverse judgments.
Well,
I think the jury system
if I can interrupt you.
Yeah,
police have expressed their sorrow at what happened. They say they face gun crime every day of their lives. I mean, do you have any sympathy with them at all?
Well, black communities face gun crime every day of their lives because we are the disproportionate victims of its killings. So we know very well what gun crime is about. And of course, as a founder of Operation Trident many years ago, we're alive to the reality of dealing with armed criminality. But that doesn't give license for officers to use overwhelming force on the streets of London. And where it does happen, and the reactions that you've seen both in 2011 and today, give an indication that all is not well. There is a crisis in the relationship between black communities and the police, and this will have exacerbated it greatly.
Well, as we've seen, his death prompted those riots back in 2011, scenes like we've never seen before in this country. Mark's aunt shouting outside court today, "No justice, no peace." What do you think is going to happen now?
I think that the black community is going to get together with others who are passionate about justice to consider where and how we go forward with the issue. Because at the moment, I think all black families will be worried for their sons, for their daughters, out on the streets where they come into contact with the police. They'll be worried about their safety and security. We cannot have a society where a black community is so profoundly alienated from the institution of the police. We've gone backwards in relation to race relations and police contact, and we need urgently the Home Secretary and the Commissioner of Police and the Mayor of London to begin to take this matter seriously.